A wild Week 9 in the NFL, second to last week of the season sim. Crazy with the playoff scenarios. Actually, no teams could clinch playoff spots this week, but as many as 8 teams needed to win to stay mathematically alive. You had the Giants and the Jets here, both of them battling for playoff positioning. Giants trying to stay in first place in the NFC East. Jets trying to stay afloat in the AFC East after a bad second half. Here's Sam Darnold with a throw for a touchdown, and the Jets offense was rolling in this battle of New York teams. Jets here up 17 then. Sam Ficken's gonna throw, and the offensive lineman Jerron Fant makes the catch in the end zone for a touchdown on the fake. It was that kind of game for the Jets. So the Jets win 38-6 over the Giants, keeping themselves in a realistic chance at 5-4 at a playoff spot. The Giants still with a chance at a wild card, and potentially the NFC East, but in a tough spot. If Dallas would get the win on Monday night against the Dolphins, it would drop the Giants into second in the NFC East. Big day for Sam Darnold, 231 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Daniel Jones struggled for the Giants. Le'Veon Bell, 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had a couple quiet weeks, but picked things up in a big way in this one. And receiving-wise, Denzel Mims, 7 catches, 75 yards and a touchdown for Gang Green. Eagles needed to win to keep alive in the playoff race. They are mathematically eliminated. The Patriots also needed to, so New England, in the first year without Tom Brady, still with a chance at a playoff berth entering Week 10 despite a disastrous start to the season. 17-10, the Pats defeat an injury-riddled Patriots roster. Got probably Cam Newton's best game of the season. 252 yards, 2 touchdowns for Cam. Carson Wentz struggled with 3 picks. There are considerations that now in the garbage time game, Week 10, the Eagles may turn potentially to Jalen Hurts to start at quarterback. You see Sony Michel, 22 carries, 60 yards, leading the way for the Pats. And Zach Ertz with 10 receptions for the second time this season, but it wasn't nearly enough. Patriots dealing with injuries though. N'Keal Harry also got hurt in this game and is expected to miss the Week 10 game, which they also need to win to have a chance at a wild card spot. So the Patriots will be without Harry and Edelman for Week 10. Bengals and Ravens, and this was not a good sign. Joe Mixon went down with a hip injury, and he is expected to miss next week's game. Fracture in his hip. Costly for such a great running back. Bengals, Ravens. Ravens have struggled this season, had some tough losses. Must-win situation to stay alive in the playoff race. Bengals were already eliminated, but a big throw from Joe Burrow to Tyler Boyd put Cincy on top ultimately by 8 points entering halftime. Look at this throw into tight coverage, and what a catch by Tyler Boyd. And Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, one of those 7 teams that needed to win or else they'd be eliminated from playoff contention, they lose 32-22, so the Ravens will not make the playoff. Turnovers, again, a problem for Lamar Jackson, while Joe Burrow put together a really solid game. 125 yards and a touchdown for Lamar Jackson on the ground. Did not fumble the ball either. What a day it was for Tyler Boyd. 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. What a day for Boyd. A Dan Bailey kick with 1 minute and 2 seconds to go. The Vikings getting tested by the Detroit Lions, where it seems like every week either the Vikings or Packers stumble when they're ahead in the NFC North. The Vikings, though, took the victory to improve to 6-3, meaning that the Packers were suddenly in a must-win situation for their game, or else the Vikings would clinch the NFC North. These teams facing off in Week 10, so if the Packers would win, it would set up a winner-take-all game in Week 10 for the NFC North crown. A tough thing for the Vikings, of course, had to play without their quarterback, Kirk Cousins, who's expected to be back for Week 10. He was out with an ankle injury. Nate Staley played a decent game, honestly, at quarterback. Dalvin Cook with 108 yards on the ground kind of set things up for the Vikings in some scenarios. But it was all about Adam Thielen, 163 yards and a score. Shout out to Quintez Cephas for the Lions, 101 yards and 2 touchdowns on the receiving end for him. The Jacksonville Jaguars finally won a game, taking down the Atlanta Falcons. Without Matt Ryan, of course, due to his torn ACL, 22-10. So the Jaguars did not clinch the #1 pick of the draft here in the second to last week of the season. Falcons fell to 2-7. Kurt Bankert got shaken up. Sterling Hofrichter had to come in at quarterback. Both of them really struggled. Dan Jeffries did enough at quarterback. The third different starting quarterback the Jaguars have used this season. Todd Gurley ran for 110 on the ground, but it did not prove to be enough. And not a single receiver in this game eclipsed 50 yards. Julio Jones, by the way, had just one catch for 6 yards. Panthers tie game. P.J. Walker in at quarterback after a Teddy Bridgewater injury. Going for the win, and P.J. Walker fumbles in the end zone, picked up by the Colts defense. And the Panthers, who are in a must-win situation to stay alive in the NFC playoff race, they lose 17-14 to the Colts, who also really needed a win. They were currently going into this game above the cutoff for a wild card spot and had a couple of bad losses, but capitalize and win 17-14 against this banged-up Panthers team. P.J. Walker didn't look terrible throwing the ball, but did have 3 costly turnovers. Teddy Bridgewater likely out for the season. Phillip Rivers had a masterful game for the Colts. Trey Cannon had a big run for the Panthers. Mike Davis got hurt as well. They're playing without McCaffrey, but look at P.J. Walker's running numbers. 143 yards on the ground. With 2 fumbles, including that one that he lost in overtime. DJ Moore led the way receiving with 113 yards. A weird year for the Panthers, including a Hail Mary victory over the Texans. But against the Colts, unfortunately, they fall, ending their playoff chances. Few implications in this game. The Buffalo Bills win, though, does still keep them with a chance at the bye, the single bye, if they win and Pittsburgh loses one of their next 2 games. Or both, obviously. The Bills take care of the Washington football team 27-22. 278 yards through the air for Josh Allen. Just one less, though, for Alex Smith. Devin Singletary, yards per carry wasn't great, but he did have 3 touchdowns. Now, on the receiving end, good day for Diggs and John Brown. Terry McLaurin had 100 yards and 2 scores for Washington. Texans, Bucks. Tampa hoping for a win. Houston as well. Texans were not in a must-win situation, but could certainly use it. But Brady connects with his good friend Gronk to get Tampa on the board early. This game was not close. 28-0. Brady here finds Tyler Johnson to put the Bucs up by 5 touchdowns on the road in the 3rd quarter. Just an absolute clinic from Tom Brady as the Buccaneers take care of the Texans, who have just had a weird up-and-down year. 42-3. Texans fell to 4-5, meaning that they can feasibly get into the playoffs with a win and a Colts loss in Week 10. The Bucs are pretty safe, unless some crazy things happen. But they'd love to win. Obviously, winning they're in, but they'd need a lot of other teams to win for them to lose to miss the playoffs. Tom Brady with a huge day, 286 yards and 4 touchdowns. Despite injuries to both Leonard Fournette and LaShawn McCoy, the Buccaneers' rushing attack showed out. TJ Logan and Ronald Jones Jr. both with solid games. And then how about the game for Tyler Johnson? 6 catches, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns led the way among all receivers. Packers needing to win to stay alive in the NFC North race. The Bears gave them a test. Packers were down early, but came back to win at Soldier Field 24-20. Aaron Rodgers keyed them to victory, throwing for a season-high 339 yards. 17 carries, 95 yards for Aaron Jones, led the way on the rushing attack for Green Bay in their penultimate game of the season. And Devontae Adams. What a game, 171 receiving yards. Started the 4 o'clock slate, and Kyler Murray had a rough year, had a terrible game against the 49ers. See here, gets picked off by Ward. Murray ultimately benched in this game as the 49ers won easily 27-0 to keep their hopes alive as they chase one of those potential wild card berths. 6 interceptions for Kyler Murray. Has not looked like the same quarterback since that huge hit that he took in Week 6, and he missed the Week 7 game. Taylor Heineke then came in and threw another pick for good measure, while Jimmy Garoppolo had a great game for the 49ers as they improved to 5-4. Tevin Coleman left the game with a hamstring strain, but before that ran for 139 yards and a touchdown. And on offense, through the receiving attack, Jimmy Garoppolo's favorite target, no, not surprisingly, was George Kittle. 5 catches, 68 yards. Rams in Seattle, a rematch of that amazing 51-48 game from earlier in the season, and Russell Wilson making flashy plays again. This time in double coverage finds Tyler Lockett for an incredible catch. Not as much of a shootout this time, as the Seahawks defense held Jared Goff and the Rams to 10 points, as Seattle picked up another win to keep pace with the Saints. They still have a legitimate chance at a bye, and this also clinched them the NFC West title. Russell Wilson threw for just a tick under 300 yards with a pair of passing touchdowns in the clincher. Rams' loss drops them to 5-4, but they still do have a potential shot at it to potentially make the playoffs. They are in that wild card race with several NFC teams. If you look at the running attack for both squads. On the receiving end of things, 9 catches, 93 yards from Robert Woods led the way for the Rams, while 124 yards and a touchdown for Tyler Lockett was what was best from Seattle. Chiefs already clinched the AFC West in their last game. Patrick Mahomes put on a show. 6 touchdown passes and moved to a 45-30 win over the previously eliminated Denver Broncos. Drew Lock actually had as many picks and threw for more yards, actually had more completions too than Patrick Mahomes, but Mahomes with the 6 touchdowns, just too much. Chiefs were without their rookie running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was out with a concussion. The Chiefs really had to depend on their receiving game and their air attack. How about Noah Fant? 138 yards for him, while the other tight end, Travis Kelce, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sammy Watkins also 2 receiving touchdowns. Tyreek Hill had 97 receiving yards and a touchdown. The Chiefs were relentless on offense, their best game of the season on the offensive side. And they've clinched the AFC West. The question is now, will they get the 3 or the 4 seed? Chargers and Raiders. Interesting game here. Raiders already eliminated. Chargers needed to win to stay alive. Justin Herbert had a great year. This was not good. Trayvon Mullen makes an Odell Beckham-esque interception in the end zone, picking off Herbert. Second pick of the half for the Raiders. And you watch Herbert throwing off his back foot here, but the play of the week belongs to Trayvon Mullen, capturing this incredible interception in the back of the end zone, laying out and making a spectacular catch. The troubles did not stop there for the Chargers, as Herbert here throws. Hunter Henry makes the catch though, but is short of the end zone, brought down at the 1. Chargers would end up turning the ball over on that drive, and things would really stall out, and the Raiders would pull away 41-10. The Chargers, who had such a masterful start to the season, eliminated from playoff contention. 220 yards, 2 touchdowns from Derek Carr, while Herbert had his worst game of the season, throwing 4 picks. Have yourself a day. Josh Jacobs, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, his 5th game of the season with 100+ yards on the ground. And then Austin Eckler had 5 receptions, 31 yards. Hunter Renfrow, 86 yards and a score for Las Vegas. Biggest game of the afternoon slate, Browns and Steelers. Pittsburgh trying to stay undefeated. The Browns gave them a test earlier in the season. Here, James Conner works into the end zone to give Pittsburgh the lead early in the first quarter. This one really seemed like it was shaping up to be an offensive shootout, but stalled out at times. Here, Baker Mayfield finds Odell Beckham Jr., and the Browns take advantage of a poor Steelers drive to start the second half to cut this to just a 3-point game on a nice find from Baker to OBJ. Baker Mayfield, this was the costly one. Trying to find Beckham. It's picked off and taken all the way back for a Steeler touchdown by Micah Fitzpatrick. Despite that, though, the Browns stayed alive. 30 seconds left in the game. 34-31. Watch this. Mayfield throws it deep, and Kareem Hunt in double coverage makes the catch at the Pittsburgh 25. Just an insane moment right there for the Browns. Trying to end the Steelers' perfect season and put Cleveland in a better spot to make the playoffs. Still in a pretty decent one, win or lose here in Week 9. So Jamie Gillen would come up to try to tie the game, and the field goal is short from 47 yards, and the Pittsburgh Steelers escape and move to 9-0 and push the Browns into a situation where they really have to win next week against the Ravens to make the postseason. The Steelers now a win over the Bengals away from the #1 seed, and a win or a Bills loss. Well, actually, a win over the Bengals away from a perfect season, and a win and a Bills loss, or a Bills loss, away from the #1 seed. You see, Mayfield and Roethlisberger both played really well. Rushing game, Connor with 96 yards and a touchdown. Nick Chubb 138 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Vance McDonald 138 yards for him. Juju Smith-Schuster with a touchdown as well for Pittsburgh. Sunday night football game everybody was looking forward to between the Titans and the Saints. Saints undefeated at 8-0. Titans coming in at 7-1. Caleb Joseph capitalizes with a field goal early to put Tennessee on top. Speaking of Joseph, Jonathan Joseph picks off Drew Brees in the end zone just before halftime to stall the Saints drive where they were looking to potentially tie or take the lead. But then problems for the Titans. Darrington Evans trying to hurdle a man, fumbles the ball, and it's recovered by Sheldon Rankins for the Saints. Evans trying to get fancy with it, and it does not pay off. It sets up the Saints in great field position. Just bad decision-making there from Evans. And a jarring hit from John McKinley. So with a minute left in the half, this set up the Saints in great field position, and Drew Brees finds one of his favorite targets, Michael Thomas, for a touchdown. And New Orleans gets a break and gets the lead just before half. Titans offensive line just letting Ryan Tannehill get absolutely demolished all game long, especially by Cameron Jordan, his third game of 3+ sacks this season. Titans, though, third quarter, get a touchdown. Jonnu Smith on the reception from Tannehill to give Tennessee a 10-7 lead. Here, Alvin Kamara breaks through. Titans defense blocked up by the Saints O-line, and New Orleans takes the lead back. But then, speaking of powerful running backs, Derrick Henry didn't need to stiff-arm anybody there. He takes it in himself without any trouble to give the Titans the lead right back early in the fourth quarter. 7 minutes to go here. Saints driving. So many lead changes in this game. Here, Drew Brees gets time, throws over the middle, and Jared Cook drags the secondary into the end zone for a New Orleans touchdown. And one final chance for the Titans. Tannehill on fourth down, in and out of the hands of A.J. Brown, and the Saints would stay perfect, improving to 9-0 in the season. So 24-17, Saints in the same situation as the Steelers could clinch the #1 seed with a win or a Seattle loss in Week 10. Derrick Henry and Kamara, only 32 yards for Kamara, but they both had clutch touchdowns in this one. Jared Cook, 73 yards and a touchdown. Jonnu Smith with 50 and a score himself. Wrapping up the week, Monday Night Football, Tua Tagovailoa having a huge game against the Cowboys. Dallas, after the Giants' loss against the Jets, could take sole possession of first place in the NFC East with a win. The rookie Tagovailoa gave them a tough battle, but the Cowboys hang on to win it 38-31. Dak Prescott, incredibly accurate, 20 for 23, 275 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a 156.1 QBR. Not too shabby from Tua either. Ezekiel Elliott had a 106-yard rushing game. And finally, in the receiving attack, Devontae Parker, 151 yards in the score, while Patrick Pargo had a 75-yard receiving touchdown in the first half. The standings are in the description. 1 week to go in this NFL season sim. Should be a good battle towards the end into the playoffs.